Welcome, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Joint Degree Program information session and panel. We're going to give it just a minute or two to allow everybody that has registered for the event today to tune in. So just sit back and relax, and we'll get started shortly. I see we already had a question dropped into the Q&A asking if this event will be recorded. Yes, it will. It will be recorded and then shared on our website. So no worries if you can't catch all the information you'll be learning tonight. You can always revisit this recorded event later. Just want to let everybody know tuning in that we will get started in just a minute. Want to let everybody join today. We had another question come in. I'll answer really quick about how long this event will be. We will wrap up around 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, so about an hour long. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. So, thank you so much again for tuning into this information session and panel about the joint degree program between William and Mary and the University of St. Andrews. My name is Caroline Ward. I am a Senior Assistant Dean of Admission here at William and Mary. I'm also the liaison for the admission office for the joint degree program. And the way this event will work, we will go through our introductions, and then we have a brief presentation to share with you, just an overview of the program and the admission process for this joint degree program. And then after that, we will spend quite a bit of time on a Q&A. Now, the way the Q&A will work, when we get to the Q&A portion of the event, please feel free to drop your questions at the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So everybody tuning in should be able to see a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. It is preferred to keep it there and not in chat so that everybody can see those questions and I can get those answered in order in a timely manner. So definitely feel free to utilize that. But I want to thank you so much and pass it off to the director of the program, Harmony.
Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Harmony Dalglish. I am the director of the joint degree program here on the William and Mary side. Sam, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm Sam. I'm the assistant director for the Joint Degree program here at William and Mary.
And Tejas?
Hi everyone, I'm Tejas. I'm a third year or a junior in the program, and I'm the economics peer advisor.
And Alexa.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexa. I am a senior and I am the history peer advisor.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to go ahead and kick off the presentation. So back to Harmony.
All right, thanks so much, Caroline. All right, so welcome. So great to have you here today. I want to give you just a little bit of an overview of the program, and then, like Caroline said, give you time for question and answer at the end. So the degree that you'd be working towards on this program is called the Bachelor of Arts International Honors. It's really a unique degree. We tend to use that word often applied to this, but it really does fit. It is one of the few international undergraduate joint degrees offered with a United States university. And in this program, you spend 2 full years at St. Andrews and two full years at William and Mary. And that leads to that one degree, which is the Bachelor of Arts International Honors. Now, that 2 plus 2 begins the same way, but it has some flexibility. So what do I mean by that? Let's walk through this. As a William and Mary home student, you would spend your first year at William and Mary, and then your second year would be at St. Andrews. Also starting at their first year is a cohort of students at St. Andrews in the same program. They then spend their second year at William and Mary. So that 2 plus 2 begins the same no matter where you start, but then there is some flexibility. You can choose to spend your third year either at William and Mary or at St. Andrews, but then wherever you spend your third year, you have to spend your fourth year at the other institution. So that ends up spending 2 years at each university. That leads to your Bachelor of Arts International Honors. And this is what we call our different pathway through the program, either ABAB or ABBA, right? Whether you start at William and Mary, then spend 2 years at St. Andrews, and then come back to William and Mary, etc. So I want to just take a moment to introduce both of these wonderful universities. William and Mary, we are proud of the fact that we are a public school ranked right now #6 for public undergraduate education and teaching. The vast majority of our classes have fewer than 40 students, so most of the classes that you'll take here will be small. We are #1 for study abroad and one of the top 10 best schools for internships. This is something that we really pride ourselves on. The University of St. Andrews, one of our amazing partners, has a global reputation and really high rankings. They've been ranked #1 in the UK, as well as #1 for student academic experience. They focus on something called research-led teaching, which at William and Mary, we do that same thing, but we call it a teacher scholar. So we really have very similar philosophies when it comes to undergraduate education. And I think that's one of the things that really makes this program work. Different university cultures, different academic cultures, but at its heart, we both value teaching and doing research with our students. Their university is a little bit larger than ours, and about 41% of students are from outside the UK at the University of St. Andrews. So it feels like a very international place. So this program is a joint degree program. It's a degree program within these two universities. Currently, we have about 260 students across these 6 different majors. So classical studies, economics, English, film studies, history, and international relations. When you apply to the program, you apply to a specific major. So you will come in as a first-year student with a major. So that's one thing that's a little bit different about the program. We pride ourselves on something called depth and breadth. So the depth part of the degree is that as this degree, you will have between 54 and 60 credits that you take in your major. So compare that to a sort of standard, if you will, William and Mary degree, which is between 37 and 42. So students in the joint degree program are taking more courses in their major discipline. That's part of the breadth. There's also a 4th-year research experience, and this can look different depending on which university you spend your 4th year at. At St. Andrews, you will do a dissertation. That's an in-depth research project with a long paper at the end of it. At William and Mary, it could be an honors thesis, which is similar to a dissertation. It could be an independent study with a professor, or it could be a capstone course. So there's some different ways, but all of them constitute your kind of 4th-year research capstone experience. So that's where the depth comes in. The breadth, we have general knowledge requirements and proficiencies. This is why it's a Bachelor of Arts. You will take courses from across a variety of disciplines. And our students do lots of different things after graduation. You can just see some of the examples here, but what I love about this graph is that there's not just one gigantic piece of the pie, right? Our students are successful in a variety of different fields. There are some differences from, as I say, sort of standard William and Mary degree. At William and Mary, we have something called the college curriculum. Mostly that doesn't apply. You will take a Call 150, which is our first-year seminar course, but we replace that with our breadth requirements, these general knowledge courses. AP or IB tests will get you out of some requirements, so they can meet some of those breadth requirements, but you don't actually get credit for those. So you can check off things, you can meet prerequisites, but you don't get credit for those AP or IB tests because transfer credit is not accepted on the program. We do not allow double majors, but you can do a major and a minor. So any minor that is in the William and Mary catalog, you can work towards. And there's no difference in in-state or out-of-state tuition. So your tuition for the program will be paid to William and Mary all 4 years, but your room and board costs will be spent to the school that you're currently attending. And lastly, I just really want to hit that this isn't a traditional study abroad program. Students are full members of both schools from day one. So we just started last week our new incoming cohort of students. They are William and Mary home students. They're William and Mary students, but they are also St. Andrews students from day one. And same with those students that are starting at St. Andrews in just a week or two. That means that the clubs, the fraternities, sororities, all of these things are available to you at both universities. Internships, research opportunities. Even when a student is sitting at the University of St. Andrews, they're eligible to apply for internship funding here at William and Mary because they are full members of both schools. Students on the joint degree program can also take advantage of things like the Washington, D.C. Center, the Global Research Institute, and our summer and winter study abroad options. So if spending a couple of years in Scotland, you still want to do more study abroad, you can do that. Any of the William and Mary summer or winter study abroad programs, many of our students do those as well. So I'm going to hand this part off to Caroline to talk about how do you apply to this amazing program.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Harmony. So I'm happy to jump right into those questions I know you're all dying to ask about how to get into this program. So from the William Mary side, it's fairly simple. When you are completing the common application to William and Mary, you will get to a question asking, would you also like to apply to the joint degree program with St. Andrews? There's a few more words than that, but that's the gist. And then you check mark that saying yes. Once you say yes, it will open up an essay prompt. That essay is your application of the program. Now, the essay itself is about 1,500 to 2,000 words, so you want to give yourself just a little time. Definitely feel free if you're a high school senior right now, open up that Common App, take a look at the prompt, take a look at the application, and give yourself a little time to plan. The essay to the joint degree program essentially asks you two major questions. The first one being, why do you want to do the joint degree program? And why that major. So like Harmony mentioned, you cannot double major in this program. You can minor in anything William Mary has to offer, but for the purpose of this essay, we want to know why you want to pursue that one major. Now, we tend to have about 30 to 35 students in this program each year, so it is very boutique, very small, with about 5 per major. Now, of course, there are the more popular majors like international relations, history, and then the smaller cohorts like film studies, classical studies. So that essay can really give us a great insight into maybe your background with international relations or your trip for an archaeological dig in colonial Williamsburg that inspired your passion for classical studies and that ancient history and archaeological track. So that essay can give us great insight into your passions and your interests. One thing I want you all to note, though, is that you cannot apply to this program through both universities. So you have to decide which one you want to apply to because that will be your home institution. Now, you can certainly apply to William and Mary and to the University of St. Andrews for their general programs, their general applications, but you can only choose one for the joint degree. So essentially, at most, you can submit 3 applications, one for William and Mary, one for St. Andrews, and then one for the joint degree program within one of those applications. And with William and Mary, it's just that additional essay within the common application. In terms of timeline, so do I find out about my joint degree program decision when I find out about William and Mary? Do I find out sooner? Do I find out later? The way this timeline works, if you apply to William and Mary early decision 1, you would find out your William and Mary decision in mid-December. If you apply to William and Mary early decision 2, you would find out your William and Mary decision in mid-February. If you apply regular decision to William and Mary, you would find out in late March. If you apply to the joint degree program through any of those decision plans with William and Mary, all joint degree program joint degree program applicants will find out their joint degree program decisions together, usually by April 1st, around that April 1st date. That is when the joint degree program decisions are released. They are released all together. As you can probably gather from what I just explained, you can certainly still apply to that binding ED program with William and Mary and still apply to the joint degree program. The joint degree program application, if accepted, is the only thing that can override your ED agreement to William and Mary. So that's certainly a possibility. But of course, you can apply a regular decision to William Mary and still submit that additional essay to be considered for the joint degree program. So essentially, you are completing two applications within one. There's no additional application fee. There's just the William Mary Common App fee, and it's just that additional essay. But of course, if you have any specific admission related questions or you're completing that essay or just trying to figure it all out, then please feel free to email me. I put my email right here on the slide. It's caroline@wm.edu. And then, of course, if you have general joint degree program questions, you can always reach out to jdp@wm.edu. But I definitely want to handle any admission related questions that you have either today or via email. But we'll go ahead and stop sharing the slides and get to our Q&A. It looks like you all have been busy dropping those questions in, which I'm so happy to see. So we can go ahead and get started. So it looks like we have a question asking, is there a way to do a pre-med track with this program?
I'll answer that since I'm a faculty member in biology, if that's all right. Yes is the
Absolutely.
answer. It is tricky, but it is possible. And we have had one student do it in the past and successfully go on to medical school. So it's tricky, but yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for answering. So we have a couple questions actually, not just one related to this topic. But when do you decide which years you'll spend at each school? So when do you decide which track to choose, the ABBA or ABAB? And also, can it be flexible even after you start that first year? So let's cover that first question of when do you have to decide your track?
I can take that one too. So you don't have to decide until the spring semester of your second year. So it's usually around February of your second year that you need to make that decision. And that's simply because you need to be able to do the registration and housing for that following fall, depending on which place that you're at. So you do not need to make the ABBA or ABAB decision when you first come to William and Mary. And I actually would encourage you to not make that decision so early. Experience both schools. Think about what you want to do, what kind of capstone research experience you want to be having, whether you want to do the dissertation at St. Andrews or maybe an honors thesis at William and Mary. Think about those sorts of things and be able to be at both schools before you make that decision.
Great, thank you for sharing. Next question, are the 260 seats evenly divided between the six majors? Can you share about the numbers within the program?
Sure. So there's 260 students now in the program, across first, second, third, and fourth years. And they're not evenly distributed across the majors. So as Caroline said, international relations is our largest major. Film studies is our smallest major.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I know we have a couple questions asking about the cost of the program. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share with all attendees a link in the chat to the financial information about the joint degree program. It provides the tuition cost and kind of just a breakdown of what that looks like. So I'm going to drop that in the chat to be seen by everyone. Just dropped it in there. So feel free to access that if you have any questions about the tuition and fees. And then looks like we have a question asking, I know it was mentioned that you can submit AP and IB credit. It doesn't necessarily cover the credit of the program, but you can start out at a slightly different level. Do we also grant credit for AS and A-level Cambridge tests?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. And then we have a question asking, would it be possible to double major doing 2 years of one major at William Mary and the other at St. Andrews? Great question. You cannot. So really, there's just no double majoring within the joint degree program at all. If you decide to pursue just William and Mary in general and not the joint degree program, you can double major at William and Mary. I believe at St. Andrews you can also pursue multiple subjects, but within this joint degree, because you are pursuing two very different curriculums and you're really diving into that major while also getting the breadth of a liberal arts and science education at William and Mary, it's just not possible to double major, but it's really open to that minor that you can add on to. Okay, let's see. Ooh, we have a question asking, is it possible to talk to someone who is a current student or has done the program before. So for those asking, feel free to drop your questions to our two peer advisors here. They are current students in the program. Definitely drop those in. But of course, if you want to email with a current student, I'm sure we can connect you with someone, and there's an email you can reach out to. Correct me if I'm wrong, but likely the jdp@wm.edu. Perfect. If you want to email
Absolutely.
after today and connect, you can do so. And then, is there a cap or limit to the number of accepted students each year? So I'm happy to begin that convo a bit. So like I mentioned, we try to keep the program to about 30 to 35 students each year. That is our cap. That's our limit, because that same number of students is coming from St. Andrews as well. Students kind of switch sides that way, and we have to keep it to a certain number so that each university can provide the resources, housing, everything needed for this special, unique program. So unfortunately, we can't admit everybody. We wish we could. There are so many strong applications. But yes, there is that cap, that limit. So about 30 to 35 with the goal of about 5 per major. But like Harmony said, some majors are more popular than others. And we did get a couple questions. I apologize for not clarifying earlier. It looks like people are asking about ED to the joint degree program and whether it is a binding program. So the joint degree program is not a binding application at all. So even if you do that additional essay for the joint degree program within the William Mary application, even if you're going ED to William Mary, the joint degree program itself is not binding. What I mean by overriding your ED agreement is if you decide to apply to William & Mary early decision, so let's say the joint degree program is your number one choice, you absolutely want to do this program, but William & Mary is a close second, and you would be happy here if you didn't get accepted to the joint degree program. Then students might decide to apply early decision to William & Mary, and then if they're accepted to the joint degree program and they decide, yep, that's what I want to do, it will override that binding agreement to attend William Mary for 4 years. It overrides that. Now, definitely don't apply to William Mary ED if you only want to do the joint degree program, because if you're not admitted to the joint degree program, you're in that binding commitment to William Mary. So feel free to apply regular decision to William Mary and then still submit that joint degree program application. So hopefully that solved a few of those questions. And then, can someone speak to the course difference between the Greek and Latin track within classical studies and the ancient history and archaeology track?
I wish Jessica Stevens, our academic advisor for classics, was here. So I cannot, but I can send you to the catalog, and I can also connect you with Dr. Stevens.
Wonderful.
I'll drop her email in the chat.
Perfect. Yep. Everybody feel free to check out the chat. I know Sam dropped in that general email that you can be connected with others, and then Harmony will drop that email as well. And then we have a question asking how many students typically apply each year. So we don't share those numbers because the numbers differ every year, but just know that it is a competitive program. We get quite a few applications for the program. But that being said, don't let that scare you from applying. Definitely, if you're at all interested, it doesn't hurt to submit that essay. And then we have someone asking, is the tuition amount the same for out-of-state and in-state tuition for JDP students? So like the director Harmony mentioned, there is no difference in in-state, out-of-state tuition. There's just that one set tuition for the joint degree program students. That being said, financial aid packages can vary differently between in-state and out-of-state students. You can still apply for need-based aid. Did you want to add anything onto that, Harmony?
No.
No? All good? I covered it? Okay. Okay, this one's for the students. So our peer advisors. So how is it for students kind of reintegrating and transitioning back to William Mary after spending a year or even 2 years overseas at St. Andrews, or vice versa?
Alexa, I feel like you might have a little bit more about that one than me.
Yeah, this is my second week back at William & Mary in 2 years, and it's been very exciting. I've been very happy to be back. The workload is very different, so I've been adjusting how I've been spending my time, because at St. Andrews last year I had class once a week, and then I did all my readings for about 5 days, and that was It was a lot. I'm not saying it was easy, but I had more control over my time, and I had to go to class yesterday and today, and I have to go to class tomorrow, and I have to go to class on Friday, and that's a lot of class. That's more class combined than I've done in like a semester at St. Andrews. It's sitting in the classroom. So it's been great, and it's been great to see familiar professors and friends and settle back in, but it's definitely an adjustment that I'm working with time management for.
I'll just add a little to that. I started in St Andrews and then I came to William and Mary. So I'm ABBA, starting in St Andrews, 2 years at William and Mary, finishing in St Andrews. And I would say I really felt the same. In St Andrews, you are given a lot more independence towards your academics. But at William and Mary, you really have the opportunity to build like closer relationships with your professors, and you do get that smaller class size. So I think both schools have like amazing differences, and it kind of makes your educational experience super well-rounded.
And don't be scared of the idea of going away, because this year I am not only in a class with one of my favorite professors from freshman year, but he's also my thesis advisor. So we were able to stay in touch to the point where he was willing to do that. So it's definitely possible to go away and maintain connections with professors and with friends.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing your experiences. So can you also share, also as students and as the director and assistant director of the program, if you are participating in this joint degree program, how often are you in class with non-JDP students? So shall we dive into that?
I'll let the students answer.
I mean, when Harmony says that literally when you're at each school, you are a student at each school, that is true. Like I am in a number of classes with a couple of my friends from the program, but that's mostly by coincidence that we all took the same class. Aside from your first year and second year, like JDP class, you're going to be in class with the majority of the students at that school because you're a student at that school. So we all have requirements that we have to take. So we're sometimes in class together, but you're in class mostly with kids from either William and Mary or St. Andrews.
Yeah, just to add to that, you literally will have 1 hour a week where you're in a specific JDP class in your first 2 years. But other than that, you are just a normal St. Andrews or a normal William and Mary student. And no one would even know your JDP unless you actually mentioned it. So you are totally a member of each community.
Yeah, and the students, thank you for introducing this. The JDP class they're talking about is a class that I teach. It's called Transitions. It's for the first and second year students at William and Mary, to get you integrated into William and Mary, to get you to know each other, get some cohort building, but then also, getting you ready to be a student here at William and Mary and all the resources and things that you can do. And then in the spring semester with the first year students, I will have a transitions class that's preparing you to go to St. Andrews. My counterpart, so there is a director of the program at the University of St. Andrews. She is doing the same structure, right? So her first and second year students have that similar experience as well.
Great. Thank you all for sharing. Next question. We actually had a few questions about this, but what happens if you want to change your major in the joint degree program? So maybe you started and you're like, ooh, this is not the major, or you started and you're like, ooh, this other major in the joint degree program is more my passion. What are the possibilities there?
So there is a possibility to switch your major in the joint degree program. Especially if you come to that realization in your first year, right? So, and some majors are more flexible than others, right? So some majors, it's quite easy because the first year requirements is only a couple of classes. Some have more classes and it's more difficult to switch, right? So most definitely it's possible, but it's not, but some changes are easier than others.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Just organizing the questions here. I know we have some repeats, so I want to make sure to get those answered. So we had a question asking, does financial aid through William Mary carry over into the joint degree program. So just want to tackle that real quick because we have a couple financial aid questions. So when you apply to William Mary and you also apply to this joint degree program, let's say you apply for need-based aid, then you will get two different financial aid packages sent to you if you're admitted. So when you're admitted, you'll get a financial aid package sent to you for William Mary and a separate one sent to you for the joint degree program. So that way you have all the knowledge you need on cost, what it looks like from just William Mary or just the joint degree program. So that's how the financial aid side works. We also had some questions about, are there any particular scholarships for this program? There are not from the William Mary side, no particular scholarships, but I will say if you do receive a merit scholarship from William and Mary, so one of our James Monroe Scholars or William Mary Scholars or anything like that, that can be applied to your time in the joint degree program. You don't lose that scholarship if you decide to do the joint degree program. We've had many a student in the joint degree program who's also one of our Monroe Scholars, for example. And then I have some questions about whether your acceptance or non-acceptance to the joint degree program affects your acceptance to William Mary. It does not. Just so you all are aware of our process, when you apply to the joint degree program, because you're also submitting your application to William Mary, your William Mary application is actually read first. That is reviewed first. If you are accepted to William and Mary, then your application will be passed on to be reviewed for the joint degree program if you applied for the JDP. So if you are not accepted to William Mary, you cannot be accepted to the joint degree program. That's kind of where the line ends in terms of the application process. But if you're accepted to William Mary, you're then moved along in that process to be reviewed for the joint degree program. Applying for the joint degree program does not affect your application to William and Mary. So hopefully that answers some questions there. We did get a question asking if let's say as a student, if I were to get tuition free due to military benefits, would these apply to the program? So military benefits cannot be applied to this program. So I know the GI Bill has been asked before. It cannot be applied to the joint degree program. So definitely a great question because you definitely want to know that as you begin the application process. Okay, and then next question. Will early college students be allowed to attend this program with credits, or can we test out with IB testing? So like it was mentioned earlier, we can take credits, but you still have to complete all the credits in the joint degree program. So you can transfer in some scores and start out at like a different level, or they can cover some of these breadth requirements, but you still have to complete the requirements within the joint degree program. I didn't know if anybody wanted to expand on that a bit, but I know we kind of shared it on the slide as well. Ooh, and then an interesting question here. Are you guaranteed to get the ABAB or ABBA decision that you want? So, are you guaranteed
Yes.
your track that you want? You are. Okay, great. Is there anything specific that is looked for in the application essay? So like I mentioned, those two main prompts asking you why you want to do the joint degree program and why that particular major. So why the joint degree program? You can mention all that you've learned about the joint degree, what experiences, classes, anything in your past would relate to your passion for this program. Also sharing your knowledge of this program. We want to know that you understand what this program is. You would be surprised how many students write, oh, I want to study abroad in England, and it's like, oh, close, but not quite. So you definitely want us to know that you are ready and prepared and understand what this program means. And then the second part, that major, like I mentioned earlier, it's really just knowing that you have a basis of that major. You certainly don't need to know everything, but you have a passion for it because it is the only program at William Mary where you are applying directly into the major. And then our next question, do you graduate with William Mary or do you graduate with St. Andrews students? Does it change based on your final year?
So you can graduate through with both in both ceremonies. So students have the option to participate in both ceremonies. And many students do. I don't know if students want to add anything to that.
I'm currently planning on going back to St. Andrews in June. The nice thing is that they're scheduled at different times, so you actually can walk at both ceremonies. So I'll graduate in May here, and then about a month later, I'll fly to St. Andrews and walk there.
Yeah, there's just like a little nuance. If you're very passionate about going to both graduations, it may make more sense to finish at William and Mary because the exam dates work better in that way. But again, you have like plenty of time to think about that.
And then are William and Mary students housed together during their first year at St. Andrews? So if you do the ABBA track, that very first year at St. Andrews, your second year, are you housed with William and Mary students or are you housed with St. Andrews?
I think the answer is it depends. So you can apply for a particular roommate. Alexa, yeah, what was your experience?
So I applied to have a random roommate going to St. Andrews because I thought that that would just be better for integrating. And I walked into my room, and then my roommate walked into the room, and we were chatting, and she was American, and I was American. I was like, I'm coming from William and Mary. And she was like, I'm coming from William and Mary too. And we were like, oh, that's cool. We're both random roommates who were in the program together, and we didn't meet last year. And then we started chatting with our other friends. And it turns out, I don't know if you know this. I don't like, maybe it's an open secret, but I think St. Andrews Housing puts JDP kids together as much as possible because
That could be
one
true.
of my friends was with one of my friends had a single in kind of a single suite dorm style, but all of her roommates or all of her suite mates were also JDP kids. They all went random. And then one of my friends was with a third year JDP kid. He had also gone random and they were roommates. So I mean, I haven't done a wide survey of the program, but within my friend group, all of us who went random ended up with JDP roommates, which was great, and I'm happy for it. But it definitely, I didn't know that that was a thing, and I like it was never talked about, so it's just a
Yes.
possibility.
I
And
don't know that that's done intentionally because I don't have anything to do with assigning housing at St. Andrews.
And I'd say it is also quite random because if you start in St Andrews, I was just put with regular first year students at St Andrews, and there actually was no like JDP people on my corridor, so I guess it can really differ like where you start.
Great, thank you for sharing. So we've gotten a few more questions on whether students have any trouble adjusting when transitioning between schools. And I know, Alexa Tejas, I know you've shared kind of those experiences, those resources available to students to adjust. Do you mind expanding on that more and just kind of talking about what that looks like from the student perspective too?
Yeah, so I would say it is definitely not um always the easiest thing, but you just become such a resilient and strong person from going through the program. And when you look at things like grad school or going into a job, you literally have almost double the amount of experience when compared to the average undergrad. You've lived in two countries, you've studied in two countries, you have friends in two countries. But I think the main thing with the transitions is giving yourself time to adapt to each university, not expecting to just go in there and feel automatically like you know everything, and embracing differences and really relying on your JDP peers and your upperclassmen. Me and Alexa are both peer advisors, and we're here to just kind of give advice to underclassmen and just help them settle in because we've been through it. I was on this Zoom call like 3 years ago. So, you know, it's just passing down any knowledge, and we are here to help. So, like, there are resources available.
Yeah, I would just agree. I mean, it's definitely, it's like, it's not easy to fly across a country and change everything and all the people and every system you're used to, but it gives you so many more opportunities and you learn so much more about being an adult and being independent. And so I think there's a lot gained from there between within the program. It like it is an adjustment, and on both sides, going there was an adjustment, and coming back, it's been an adjustment. But I think having gone through it once, it's been a lot easier to settle back in, and like knowing that, you know, you've been through it, you kind of feel like you can do anything after this.
Great. We have a question asking, so because IR is the most competitive major in the program, do you recommend a student interested in IR consider a different major for a better chance of acceptance to the program? So I do not recommend that. I recommend applying to the major that you want to major in. it's certainly not guaranteed if you get into the program under a different major that you can then switch. The highest recommendation I can give is to apply for the major you're passionate about and want to pursue because that will come out in your essay. So certainly we're not like, oh, we've reached our 5 students in IR. We got to stop here. No, we review all these essays. We really get to know who you are, what you'll bring to the program, what the program might mean to you as a student and as a person. And certainly, if you're sharing this passion for international relations or these experiences that will heighten your passion for international relations, we'll know that in the essay. So definitely apply to the major you want to pursue. And then we have a question, is there anywhere on the website that describes the research or dissertation that students do in their senior year? And I know there was that slide of thesis and research. Can you dive a little more into that experience?
Yeah, so you can definitely read about the William and Mary honors thesis because that's something that any William and Mary student, including joint degree program students, can do. And Alexa, it sounds like you're starting one this fall, which is really exciting. It's a year-long, in-depth research project in your major, working closely with an advisor. And Alexa pointed out she met her advisor her first year and continued to work with them, which is great. That's exactly how that works. And then you do a public presentation, and you defend that thesis for a committee. And that committee includes your advisor plus at least one person outside of your discipline. I, as a biologist, have gotten to be the outside person on IR honors theses, which has been really fun as part of this program. I've really enjoyed that. And then someone else, that's usually a 3 or 4 member committee. So usually there's one person outside and then 1 or 2 inside. So that's really what an honors thesis is. You give a big public presentation, you defend it to that committee, and then you've completed honors in that major. A dissertation is a little bit different, doesn't require that public presentation component, but it's often a longer piece of work in terms of writing work. You will also, the dissertation at St. Andrews, you will work closely with a dissertation advisor, but that advisor, you don't have to build that relationship ahead of time. That advisor is often assigned to you. There's a way that they determine who the advisor will be for the dissertation. So those are the 2 sort of dissertation or honors thesis. We also have independent study, which can be doesn't require the public presentation and the defense of an honors thesis, but it's still working on an independent study project with a professor. And then the last option is a capstone course. I know a lot of students in economics do the capstone course. And that is what we call our Call 400. So I say you don't if you look at the William and Mary College curriculum, a Call 400 is our capstone course, and students in the joint degree program in different majors can choose that as an option while ending at William and Mary too.
And then we have a question asking, does a student in this program also get a UK degree at the same time? They do not. So the beauty and uniqueness of this program also includes the fact that when you complete this program, you're getting a single degree coming equally from both institutions. So you have the seal from both universities on your degree. And then also this attendee is asking, are there examples of students being employed in Europe afterwards? So after this completion, anybody want to share?
Well, and I want to add one component to that, Caroline. It's correct, you get 1 degree, but your UK transcript, your St. Andrews transcript will have your UK degree classification
Oh, that's
in
true.
the same way. That so it will be interpreted, and then your William and Mary transcript will have your Latin honors, right? So you'll have both of those in a single degree, so you can really translate it in anywhere in the United States, anywhere in Europe will understand what that degree means. And yes, dual citizens and even American citizens end up working in the UK or going to graduate school in the UK or other places in Europe after graduation from this program.
And then we have someone asking if we get into the program, but we love William and Mary so much that we don't want to leave, can we drop the joint degree program? So can you speak to that?
Sure. My answer would be go check out St. Andrews before you make any final decisions. Most definitely do. We do have students on the William and Mary side who that happens to, and yes, it is possible, but we definitely encourage students starting at St. Andrews have that same encouragement, right? Is to do at least a year at both institutions before you make that decision. But yes, it's possible.
Great. And can our students share, are there any student societies or clubs at St. Andrews that tend to be a little more popular among the joint degree program students?
I would say one thing, it's not exactly a society, but in St Andrews you have these things called academic families, and that's when third year students take on first year students, or like if you're coming in from William and Mary as a second year, I'm sure they have some sort of equivalent too. But basically like they kind of like do a lot of fun things with you during Raisin and can also be like a helping hand. But I think a lot of JDP people have academic parents who are also in the JDP. So not directly a society, but I know a lot of people meet each other through that.
I was a child of two JDP parents. And I went in as a second year. I got adopted by, so it was like a joint degree program buddy scheme. And she was like, "Hey, do you want to be my kid?" And I was like, "Sure." And so both of my parents were in the joint degree program. But I would say, like, in terms of societies and clubs, again, you are a student at that school. So it's not, I mean, there's the WAMSTA partnership, which is kind of the social student club of the program, but like by program students. But aside from that, like, be involved in as many clubs and societies at William and Mary that you want to be involved in, and be in as many clubs and societies in St. Andrews. And that way you'll actually get to meet St. Andrews kids and get integrated in that society and make friends with them.
Great, thank you for sharing. So we have some questions about housing. How does housing work in the joint degree program? Is it guaranteed? Do you only room with other JDP students? Are you on a separate corner dorm away from everybody on campus? So I want to tackle all of those. Number one, you are guaranteed housing all 4 years in this particular program because you spend 2 years at each. Number two, you do not have to room with a fellow JDP student. You can certainly do so if you get to know someone and you want to live with them. You can request each other and room together, but you don't have to. And number three, you are not sequestered to a little JDP dorm on the edge of campus. You are fully integrated into the campus life and culture, into the residence halls on both campuses. Now, both campuses are slightly different in that St. Andrews, their campus is spread out over the city. So your residence hall and dining hall might be, across from your academic building, across the city. And then with William Mary, ours is a triangle-shaped campus, and it is a typical United States campus in that it has kind of those borders there, and it's within the heart of Williamsburg, but it doesn't spread out over the entirety of the city. So you will be rooming and living with other William and Mary students and not necessarily with JDP students if you don't want to. And then we have questions asking, is the application process the same for both universities? So there are slight differences. Feel free to check St. Andrews website to see what their application process is like. I know they have an essay as well, and it can be a little bit different, especially on where you have to apply and submit that. But we do have slight differences, so definitely look that over. And then we have a question asking, do we have a wait list for the joint degree program? We do. We don't just send out acceptances and denials. We also do have a wait list because you never know. There might be students who just cannot pursue the program or decide to attend elsewhere. Totally okay. And then we might look to our wait list. I do want to say, though, that we don't tend to go to our wait list quite a whole lot. We're a very small cohort, and it has grown in popularity. So we haven't needed to go to the wait list necessarily, but we do have one. So waitlist is not certainly the end of the line. And then we continue to get questions on how many students apply, how many are accepted. While we don't share those numbers, again, just keeping in mind, we try to have about 30 to 35 students in it each year with about 5 per major. In terms of acceptance rate to the program, it varies greatly each year. And with that process of first you have to be admitted to William Mary, and then you're reviewed for the joint degree program, that's where that kind of can differ. And then some more questions. during your first year at William and Mary, are you given instruction on what to expect during your transition to St. Andrews? So, do you all mind speaking to that first year course that JDP students unite to attend?
Well, I teach that course, so I'll start and then I'll let the students chime in. But yes, is the short answer. That spring semester, it's just first year students. We focus entirely on what you need to do, partly logistics to get your visa, get your housing applications, all of those logistics to get ready to go to St. Andrews. But then I also bring the peer advisors into many of those classes as well to give advice on how the academics are different, to give advice on how living there is different, all those sorts of things as well. And then your first semester at St. Andrews, you will have a class with my counterpart at St. Andrews to help you integrate and adjust. We can talk all day about how it's going to be different, but then when you get there and you're experiencing it, having that support of that of your cohort and the director is also really invaluable. Feel free to chime in and add anything if you want to, students.
One thing that I found really helpful is like whichever side you start on, the program director from the opposite side tends to visit your class at some point. And also like other members of like staff, like I think in St. Andrews we had the William and Mary accommodation like housing person come and visit. And that's super useful just to get like a first-hand kind of idea of what it's going to be like or how to like do some of the logistical things. So you do get supported through it.
Great. And then we've had a few questions asking about what the international relations program is like, what the classics program is like, film studies. So if one of the majors that you're interested in is not represented on our panel today, then please, please, please feel free to email jdp@wm.edu. I know Sam dropped that in the chat earlier, and we can connect you with a student, a major advisor, peer advisor, a person in the program that can speak to that experience within that major. So we definitely want to connect you with someone within your interest, but I know it can be tricky when you might have very specific classical studies experience questions or international relations, etc. So we have a question asking, what kind of grad schools have students been accepted to in the past?
I can answer that one. Our students have gone a vast variety of places. We have some right now. We have one in Oxford. We have one in Cambridge. We have one doing her PhD at Brown in history. We have one at Vanderbilt. We have one doing law at Vanderbilt. And I think there's also one for history in Chicago, and that's just within the last like year or so. Besides that, many have gone on to big grad schools, small grad schools, depending on what they want to do. A lot of them have gone straight to PhD programs, and some, more so frequently now, a lot are going straight into the job world. And it's not a hard thing for them to do. A lot of people, especially in grad schools and with jobs, the first thing they ask is, what is this joint degree program and what does it mean? We are one of two in the entire United States. So when people see that on your resume, that's kind of like a fun point to talk to.
Thanks for sharing. We have some questions asking, are there any ways to make the JDP essay stand out or the application stand out? Do we review just the JDP essay or the overall application to William and Mary? So a big part of reviewing for the joint degree program will be that essay. We do see your transcript and we see other parts of your application to make sure you're academically prepared for the program. But that essay is a major component for the joint degree program review. In terms of making it stand out, those two prompts I mentioned earlier, just addressing those, share details, share experiences, share your knowledge. That's what's important to us. So we have some questions for our students here asking, what has your relationship with students at the schools outside of the JDP been like? And what's been your relationship with the students within the JDP? So do you feel like you're friends with more just general JDP students, or do you make friends and connections through both schools outside of the program?
I think for me, it's been pretty equal. Freshman year, I definitely our history cohort was very small, and so we all got close pretty quickly, especially because we were in like at least one, I guess two classes, including the JDP class together. So we bonded quickly, but also I have made terrific friends at William and Mary. I'm living with freshman year friends now, so we maintained connections even while I was away. And I made really good friends at St. Andrews who I still chat with, who are obviously still there. So it's definitely like, I think it's important to make friends from both sides and from the program because it's good to have program friends who can kind of help support you when things get hard with the program because it's very unique and that way you guys kind of know what you're going through together, but also making sure that when you're at William and Mary, you have William and Mary friends because that's really important and you don't want to forget that you are a full member of that school. And the same goes for St. Andrews because like if you just spend your time with program kids, you're not utilizing your full experience at either school. So making sure that you really join clubs and make friends and stay connected with them, that's all really important too.
I completely agree with Alexa in that I think to have like the best experience, kind of open yourself up to friendships both within the GDP, JDP, and outside the JDP. But on a personal level, my freshman year, all my friends were entirely St. Andrews home students, and there's no particular reason. It just happened. And then at the moment, I'd say a majority of my friends are also William and Mary home students, but I still have like a lot of people that I'm close to in the JDP that I can work with and rely on. And a funny thing is, every single time I fly from London to Washington, DC, there's always at least one person on the program on my plane. So yeah, no, it is definitely nice to like open yourself up to those connections. But again, because you are really truly a student at both universities, it's up to you who you want to be friends with.
Okay, wow, time flies when you're having fun and talking about an amazing program. So we only have just a couple minutes before we need to wrap up. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I know we have quite a few questions left in the Q&A. I just want to share with all of those attending right now that if we don't get your questions answered, please feel free to email us. You can email that jdp@wm.edu email address. You can also email any advisors and also me about any admission questions. We want to share those contact points. That way you get your questions answered. So I know we haven't been able to get to all your questions. I will say we've answered over 100 today, which I am very impressed with. And we'll get one or two more in. Asking, let's see. Can you all share, especially the students, why you chose the joint degree program? You know, going through that application process, applying to other schools, applying to William Mary or St. Andrews or both. Why did you choose the joint degree?
Um, I'm one of the cases where I applied ED to William and Mary, knowing that if I didn't get into the program, that William and Mary was the school that I would be happy at for 4 years. But I think I applied to the program because for some reason I always wanted to study abroad in Scotland. That was like just a random thing. And one day my mom was like, "Hey, did you see this? You can study abroad for 2 years and get like a whole special degree out of it." And so, yeah, I guess that's really why is because I was impressed with the idea that it was different from just a regular study abroad. You were a full student in a different country at a different school with different opportunities. But I also was willing to be at William and Mary if I hadn't gotten into the program.
For me, I took a gap year, and during that time, I spent some time traveling around America, and I got interested in kind of studying at an American university. But then I also applied to like loads of UK universities, and that was kind of my primary focus. And I guess the JDP was just like this awesome program because you didn't have to choose; you can have a US and a UK degree. Why pick? So yeah, that's kind of how I stumbled upon it.
Okay, we have one final question really quick because like five questions came in about it. Can you join the JDP or apply to the JDP after you begin at William and Mary? Is there a transfer in process? Can you cover that real quick?
Yes, I would be happy to. Sometimes. So very rarely we do admit transfer students in the spring semester of your first year. And that information, students would apply around October in order to join the program in the spring semester. And that just really depends on cohort numbers and if we have the space. And it's just not guaranteed. So some years we do have one or maybe two transfer students, but many years we don't have any.
Great. Thank you for covering. Well, I just want to thank you all so much. We've wrapped up our time here for the information session and panel about the joint degree program. Again, for those that didn't get your questions answered, feel free to email jdp@wm.edu, or if you have admission related questions, please feel free to email me at caroline@wm.edu. So hopefully fairly easy email addresses to remember. But I also want to thank our panelists for being here today and sharing their stories and experiences with us. Thank you all so much. And I hope everybody has a wonderful day, morning or evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. But thank you.